ABC News with Rachel Hayter. Australia's Chief Medical Officer says the country's hotel quarantine system is fit for purpose, despite several cases of COVID-19 escaping into the community. State authorities in Melbourne are scrambling to ramp up testing services there after 2 more cases were yesterday linked to a facility for returned travellers. Professor Paul Kelly says the overwhelming number of infections are contained and medical experts are always working to strengthen protections.
We have it mostly right. We've had well over 200,000 people come through our quarantine system now, and whilst we've had over 3,000 positive cases, we've only had a very small number of incursion to the community. We know about the new strain of the virus and other matters, so that's why we're going through that continuous quality improvement exercise.
Authorities in Victoria are calling on people to continue coming forward to be tested as the state comes to terms with those 2 new cases. Both the infections are linked to the Holiday Inn quarantine hotel at Melbourne Airport. More than 20,000 tests were taken over the past 24 hours. As Zalika Rismore reports, the state government is calling for that effort to continue.
Testing capacity has been boosted today. We saw very long lines, particularly in the city's northwest yesterday, out at Sunbury, where those exposure sites were identified. We know that a couple of new testing sites have been opened today. They've also expanded the capacity at those existing sites. And of course, we saw 22,000 yesterday. We saw almost 23,000 the day before. So we're hoping for similar numbers, I think, today to ensure that we can curb the spread of the virus as we go forward.
South Australia's Chief Public Health Officer says it's too early to tell how long SA's border will be shut to Greater Melbourne. South Australia's borders to Greater Melbourne closed just after midnight. South Australia has recorded 1 new case of coronavirus. It involves a man in his 30s who's recently returned from overseas. He's been in a Medi hotel since his arrival. Professor Nicholas Spurrier says SA Health is likely to know more about border changes on Monday.
I have my fingers crossed about is that this is going to get on top of very, very quickly, even though we've got 2 new cases today. And I feel confident in this particular situation because we have also good information from Victoria about how many of the close contacts they have got into quarantine.
Unemployed young people are struggling to compete against older candidates in their efforts to pick up jobs. That's according to a senior Treasury official. The overall unemployment rate is improving much quicker than many economists expected, but still far fewer young people are in work today than before the pandemic hit. Treasury Department Secretary Stephen Kennedy told a parliamentary hearing young people tend to suffer most when the economy tanks.
Always coming out of any downturn, the young who won't be competing for jobs with experience and coming into a softer labour market may need some support.
Police are searching Darebin Creek Reserve in Melbourne's north in relation to missing woman Zhu Zhang. The 33-year-old was last seen at her home in Epping last Monday, dressed in a pink nightgown and slippers. Her partner remains in custody following his arrest at Melbourne Airport last night. The Chinese President Xi Jinping has reportedly told US President Joe Biden that confrontation between the 2 countries would be a disaster. According to Chinese state media, in the first phone call held between the two since Mr. Biden took office, President Xi urged caution around matters related to Taiwan, Hong Kong and Xinjiang. Reports suggest the Chinese leader also called for efforts to re-establish the means to avoid misunderstandings and misjudgments. President Biden's office says he affirmed his desire for a free and open Indo-Pacific and highlighted his concern about China's actions in those regions. And protesters have gathered for a 6th straight day in Myanmar's largest city, Yangon, as the unrest against the country's military coup continues to spread. Police officers in uniform joined the protests yesterday, which took place in cities across the country. After yesterday's protests, Myanmar's military reportedly arrested another 5 members of the country's National League for Democracy.
You're listening to ABC.